Great. So the learning outcomes we've covered here in terms of what we mean by diversity and what we're going to focus on. And some of you have already told me, which is really helpful, what interests you about this topic. I appreciate some of you might be generally interested. And as I said earlier, it is irrelevant in this particular month. But knowing what interests you about that, so I've seen that someone's saying they want to increase, Hannah's saying they want to increase or improve diversity at your company. Is that actually just is that diversity, Hannah, in terms of seniority or just generally? I'm interested, do you know specifically what you want to do? And same as with Anna, Amy, do either of you know specifically what you want to achieve, or actually maybe that's why you're here, to work about how you can be specific? Katie, yes, the slides and a link to the recording will be sent out afterwards, so that's there. So benchmarking for Katie's interested in that, and we know that someone's looking at recruitment as well. All right, so feel free to keep chatting and saying what else that you're interested in here. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, I think it's important to extract, if you like, the two different terms, because they're not exactly the same thing. And I think if you went through diversity, it's recognizing that although we're all people, we've all got things in common, we're also different in many, many ways. And actually, in brackets, that's totally fine. In fact, I'd go almost more than fine. That's actually really advantageous. And we'll look at some of the reasons later, and the evidence of the fact that actually we are stronger if we are more diverse. Now, inclusion, of course, is about how do we embrace those differences? I mean, more than inclusion, really maximizing them. So it's recognizing those differences bring benefits, including a better working environment, and it means that we make better decisions. So bringing them together, it's recognizing difference. It's not hiding differences, but it's also about making sure that we really value them and see that through inclusion, it's going to make us a stronger organization. So I've got a couple of polls here just to get us a little bit involved, and I'm interested in your opinion in your, oh, hang on, that's the wrong one, your organization. Hang on, that's it. Your opinion in your organization of, if your organization isn't already bought into it, and you may already be really on side with it, what do you think would encourage your organization to buy into it? And I suppose by buying in, I'm saying see it as more than just lip service, something you should do or have to do. What is it that would encourage them to think it's more important? And you can choose more than one if you want on this. You don't have to just choose one. I'll give you a moment to have a think. Okay, just over half of you have contributed, so I'll just give you a few more seconds to have a go. Great, okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll here and share it with you. So what we've got here is we've got a lot of you are seeing that it's about the values, and I think that links, isn't it, with employer brand, and also the point made earlier about wanting to recruit. So being seen to be an organisation that really does, it was Cobalt, wasn't it? Caroline was saying that you really are values driven in terms of these things, makes people want to come and work for a company that actually values others. And actually that's interesting. Those of you, here's a question to you, sort of an anecdotal question for those of you. Are you noticing when you are recruiting people that they've considered diversity and inclusion to be an important reason to join your organisation? Is that something that you get into conversation with candidates at the moment? Or is it more that you think it's important to be seen to do it externally? Do you have any experience of people actually asking about it or knowing that it's considering it to be really important? I'm interested to see if any of you got any just observations on that as how you've seen it. So most of you obviously see that it is the case. Also very important is increased performance, and we'll look at that. So definitely we will perform better, and I think that for me, when you're trying to convince the board, a lot of it's about money, doesn't it, in terms of those sort of things. So actually demonstrating that a more diverse organisation will perform better. There will be reduced risk, will make better decision making. All of those things together actually really link together in terms of things. And of course, also, tapping into talent. If any of you listen to my HR Uprising podcast this week, it was Monday, podcast went out about being able to recruit people with disabilities. I spoke to this guy who has an organisation that specialises in that called Kaleidoscope. Truly inspirational. And so, diversity is, all across the piece, and realising that there's loads of areas of untapped talent that we should try and access. So no one's told me whether or not they're having discussions at recruitment stage about this. Maybe we just think we should be seen to do this. Do tell me if you are. I'd be interested to know if anyone asks. So the business case, this data you can Google yourselves. And in terms of, and it's a McKinsey piece of data, it is pre-pandemic. I haven't got anything yet that's since, well, we're only just kind of coming since, but what this data is showing you is that the most diverse companies are now more likely than ever to outperform the less diverse ones. So it's taken the top quarter against the bottom quarter, and it shows that they're more likely to outperform them on profitability. And this is a key, isn't it? If we want to get people to buy into, rather than just paying lip service about this, actually really lead in terms of this being a good thing to do. And the analysis showed that these statistics, in fairness, they are a little bit narrow. It's gender diversity here, but they showed that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on exec teams were 25% more likely to have above average profitability than companies in the bottom quartile. And that has increased since 2017. I think it was 21% in 2017, and it was 15% 3 years prior to that, 2014. Now, the other thing is that it says that the greater the representation, the higher the likelihood of outperformance. So it's not just, this would be your sort of minimum numbers, or, I wouldn't say token females on there, but basically the more, the higher the diversity, or the more the balance on something in terms of representation, you found that companies with more than 30%, which isn't even half, companies of women execs, were actually more likely to outperform those than with those with fewer or none at all. So the more you went up, we don't know to what point, then actually that improvement increases. And then look at the ethnic diversity differences. They increase even more in terms of the difference from the bottom and the top there. Now, McKinsey, when you read their write-up about this, they consider that progress has been slow in terms of female representation on executive board. They've said it's gone from 15% to 20% in 2014 to 2019. I don't know whether that is slow in actual fact. And ethnic minorities in 2017 was up from 7% to 14%. So it depends which way you spin it, really, as to whether that's seen as positive as it's doubled, or really negative because it's still really low. It's still 1 in 6. So there are people who've made gains, but loads of businesses have gone backwards. So it is something there that if you want to re-energize this, I don't think I've got the link to this actually to hand, but you can Google it in terms of diversity. Or what we'll do is I'll get Caitlin to remind me. I'll try and find the paper and put the link in the follow-up email that comes out to you if you want to download the paper and have a good read through it, because it is stacked through of data for you in terms of things that you could take to your organization as to how you stack up. So many of you have come on because you want metrics. You could use some of these metrics to actually benchmark what your diversity is against the standards that they came up with. So one of the things, again, you're saying if you'd like to benchmark, and of course the reality is for you to do anything about diversity, you need to know where you are now, and that's basically the key. My question would be, and this is another poll, it's anonymous, so don't worry in terms of sharing data particularly, it's just interested to understand what you would say in terms of, share this poll for you, areas of diversity that you actually measure in your organisation currently. So hopefully you can see that now. I've got so many windows open, I've just got to work out where they're all sitting. So which areas of diversity do you currently monitor or focus on? And so in terms of your data, obviously you have to keep it potentially sensitive data. So you have to keep it securely, I'm sure you do in your HRIS, but interested to see how many of you are actually measuring more than just, say, gender and race. So we've got 56% have participated. Okay, that's interesting. So Katie saying you can't all capture it. It does depend on, if you are an international company, it does depend on the local laws as well. So that's interesting, Caroline. So you just don't find that you're having applications that are diverse. What sort of organisation, were you with the Housing Association, Caroline? Were you Catalyst? Yeah, co-op housing. Right, okay, let me share this poll. I'm just going to make a note of that because we can share some ideas at the end on as to why that might be. Okay, so actually you appear to be really observing quite a lot of things here, guys. Look at this. So this is much more, I ran this probably about 9 months ago, or a variation on this. I've brought it up to date, but this is really, so a lot of you are monitoring all of those metrics, and we'll look later as to what you can do it. So the main thing is you've got the data. What you'll then be able to do is cross match that with various criteria to see whether there's any unintentional, unconscious bias going on in your organisation in terms of getting the best out of people. Well done, Naomi. Great. So there's some tips there already as to, if you're not having, Naomi said, if you looked at your job descriptions, and also same for the adverts, to make sure that the language is inclusive there. And actually, as anyone else want to put any other ideas in for those sort of things, I know certainly making sure that things like the website looks diverse, making sure the imagery is there, and just the visuals that are out there. Businesses are becoming more and more aware of that and making sure that it's easier to see. Interesting, I know housing associations are really values driven, making sure those sort of things are visible in terms of that, but certainly certain language can be seen and seen to unintentionally put off certain groups, can't it? So that's definitely an interesting one. Might be one for a podcast, that, in fairness, as the specifics. So if you're looking as to what you might want to do in terms of, this is more sort of being strategic about this, these are just some practical ideas that I would suggest that you could do in relation to diversity and inclusion yourself. First of all, take a step back and critically assess your organisational, your culture, policies and practices. And you know what, that's, I mean, great you're even here asking the question, because it gives you something to look at. So you could go back, critically assess, step back and have a look and go, right, do I think that, do we look to be inclusive in the culture? I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. Are our policies inclusive? I don't know, what would we think about in terms of flexible working? May or may not attract certain types of people. How have you been in terms of, are people still able to work flexibly or not? What other areas there might be in terms of policies and practices, in terms of the advertising, in terms of the maybe the packages that are offered may be more attractive to certain types of person. The interesting thing as well is often role models as well. Maybe if you can illustrate someone in that role, you have a little video on your website. If you're trying to attract talent, I'm thinking, you know, maybe having somebody who would be perceived to be a diverse person in the eyes of what you're trying to attract. Sorry, is it diverse person? That's very politically correct, isn't it? But you may want to make sure that it's not your typical white male, for argument's sake, who is the person saying, come and join Catalyst Housing. Have you got other people who are representative? Also, if you don't listen, do listen. I'll get Caitlin, if you can drop the link to this week's HR Uprising podcast and the link to Kaleidoscope, have a look into this company. I mean, it's an org, it's a .org, but they specialise in organisations that want to do more diverse recruitment and don't really know where to start. And so they absolutely know what it is, and that's with disability, which is quite a refreshing area to tap into. So again, that you might get some extra information from them. They're quite uniquely skilled in that area. Think about, do you actively celebrate and encourage differences? So we have got people all sorts in terms of we're a very small organization, and we have got a really wide range of religions actually. Do we actively recognize and celebrate those and bring out those differences and see them as positives? Are they spoken about, or is it sort of hidden? And it may just be it's not intentionally hidden, it's just that maybe we don't talk about people as people, but how could you actively encourage people to celebrate and encourage differences? Is there any evidence of overt discrimination or harassment, even through banter? I put this one in here because I remember working with an organisation, a large organisation, and they had allegations of bullying and harassment. And that was down to, well, I don't think people intended to, but it was kind of old style interactions. It was quite a unionised organisation, public sector. And it was particularly the women, but I think it actually was, it stemmed to race as well. And it was banter. And those who were carrying out the banter were in sort of the in group, and maybe thinking they were being funny, but actually it was overt discrimination, and it was something that needed to be really nipped in the bud, and they didn't realise how damaging it was. So that's something that's an interesting one. Just being careful about things like unconscious discrimination, Friday pub culture. It has, golf days, toilet setup. There's all sorts of things that can unintentionally, almost rule out certain groups of people, whether they're parents or otherwise. So making sure that there are opportunities for people to mix and succeed in your organisation, and maybe be alert to whether there are cliques, and see how you can, well, you want people to have good relationships at work, but how you can maybe break down some of those cliques. Then, of course, is a bit of analysis. So you've got your data, and I'll look at more at the strategic metrics. You've got your data in terms of your different analytics that you're looking at in terms of diversity. What you might want to then do is correlate that with allocation of reward, access to promotion, levers. Are you having a disproportionate number? Let's say that, I'll stick with gender just as easy, but let's say, are you happy that in terms of your attrition, a much higher proportion of those that leave are male or female? So is there an issue in terms of gender, in terms of levers, which would say something about the culture? And evaluate your recruitment statistics for bias, as you already are doing at the moment, and networking there, which is fabulous. Great to see. So once you want to do your benchmarking, so those of you who are here for benchmarks, you've got this benchmark now about your proportions of people in roles. Areas that you could look at to benchmark, and then once you benchmark, you can put in goals to improve. As I said, one would be performance ratings, because that would be very interesting if you do ratings, or promotions or bonus allocation, and see whether it correlates with the proportions of people in the different minority roles, and see whether there is a disproportionate emphasis one way or another, because that would show you on unconscious bias. So think about any of those things, that you've got those hard figures out there in terms of pay increase, promotion, obviously looking at people in senior roles, people in board roles, and of course, if you want to do your future pipeline, the people who are nominated, if you've got leadership development programs, and you said, right, who's interested, who should be on the succession plan, and you get, again, I'll just stick with women for the argument's sake rather than race, but you get 50-50 male-female put forward, and actually the numbers of people in the organisation currently are 30-70, that's actually mean you're having more women put forward, right? So the key is, are you having a proportionate number of people being put forward for opportunities one way or another? Is it close enough? And actually, do you see that if it's positive discrimination that's conscious, then great, if it's positive. But more interestingly is, are you finding that it's the usual suspects? So let's say 50% of your population is female, but only 30% get put forward for leadership roles. Then you've got a problem, because you're going to carry on having that problem in the future of people in more senior roles. What I do see when you think about both gender and racial balance at senior levels, that time and again, the main thing that people raise in terms is role models. People need to see people up there to feel that they will go for it. Lots of people sitting with imposter complex that don't feel able to reach for those roles. So trying very hard to give those who are in the roles a platform, without, of course, them feeling like they're being wheeled out left, right and centre as being the sort of the token person to represent diversity and inclusion. So it's always a bit of a tricky one, but someone has got to be there first to inspire others to show that it can be done. So those are ways in which you can do metrics, etc. Don't worry, Zoe, we'll send it out to you. Those are the sort of metrics you could look at. So you do need to do some number crunching, and then you can set yourself some targets. The other things that I would consider that you can do is consider where are you going to focus first. So if you actually think you've got an active problem, so that might be where there are people reporting banter, or there's real discrepancy between the numbers of people being put forward for opportunities, or you're losing talent groups, etc., then you need to actively, raise this to the awareness of the leadership team and make sure that you've got an active plan to deal with this. The other areas, so look at these areas. So I'd look, is there an evidence of current discrimination? Are you losing key talent groups? So at-risk talent groups, for example, returning mothers are just not coming back because, and that would say something about the culture and the working practice. Are you finding it hard to say, are there certain key skills that are required? You're finding it hard to recruit, and it's very narrow, your recruitment, the group of people that are coming forward. So thinking about that. And of course, as I mentioned before, that diversity of the leadership pipeline. You're not really going to get more diverse leaders if you're not making sure that at least the right number are coming through in the first place. One other point actually for recruitment, I remember that I used to work for Siemens and then with Siemens, and they went through a phase where they wanted to really actively bring through more people in terms of diversity. And what they did do is they positively discriminated in terms of the numbers of CVs making it to into I think to the first stage. So what they were doing, they were pulling through more, but then once it got to interview stage, it was then neutral. Everyone was on level playing field. But their concern was that they weren't getting enough into the system in the first place. So it's interesting to just think about it all as a funnel. If you're not attracting diversity in the first place, it's going to be very hard to filter through a proportionate number. So you may need to actually find ways of positively attracting those. Then in terms of our recommendations, what I would want to do is, if you found there was an issue, what you do is acknowledge that issue to make sure we recognise we need to do something about it. Do some work here in terms of celebrating where we are committed to D&I, get senior managers buy-in and commitment to it, look at the data that we've talked about, that potentially look into holistic diversity training, which is really just raising people's awareness about where they're unconsciously biased, although the jury is out on the effectiveness of some unconscious bias training, but certainly having that conversation. Look at mentorship programs and be ambitious in taking positive action on diversity. So go for it, really, really drive for it. Get someone who's a really great sponsor. One of the other podcasts I did on this topic is a guy called William H. Rollock, and he talked about starting off by having diverse groups in terms of this, but then actually having just inclusive groups where it's possible just to talk about what it's like to be part of this organization. Are we cliquey? Are we not? And making it safe for people to have those conversations. So it's not necessarily about having to go and have the LGBT group, the women's rights group. You don't have to necessarily go down that route. You can, but the downside of that, obviously it does depend on the size of your organization, is it can end up creating more cliques, more them and us. Whereas actually, if you can get to the point where we're all sitting around the table going, okay, this is what it's like for me working in this organization, this is what I feel included, and this is where I don't, at whatever people's position is, then that can be really, really helpful, just actually getting it to be something we talk about. And it might be nothing to do with our gender or race. It could be just that certain groups of people have known each other and worked together forever, and unintentionally you feel part of an out group rather than an in group. Consider an inclusion calendar. It's a really simple thing. I just put this up here. That was the CIPD one from last year. I think there'll be another one. And I'm sure you've got some ideas yourself as to what you can do as well. So a few tips and ideas here. I will send out the slides to you, or Caitlin will send out the slides to you. We'll pop a few podcast episodes, because I did this topic about 8-9 months ago, and we did 3 or 4 podcasts on the topic. So they might be of use to you if you're thinking about it. There'll be extra stuff from other experts. Hopefully we've got a few ideas for you, Caroline, in terms of your recruitment, things you could go and have a little look at. Certainly check out Kaleidoscope's website, think about the language of things, make sure all the visuals that are there. Okay, so you're saying, so Caroline's saying, let's see if anyone, before people disappear. So Caroline's saying, we advertise on specific third-party websites, including LGBT jobs, ethnic minority group boards. Are there any others that you'd recommend? Is there anyone someone sees it? Yeah, diverse job. A few of you are saying, has anyone got any recommendations for diverse job boards? We can also post that out on LinkedIn. Philippa's saying, this is a good one, we avoid minimum degree level entry requirements into roles where possible. Having them as standard can disproportionately disadvantage minorities because they haven't had the opportunity to do that. Would you put degree equivalent, Philippa, or you'd not put anything at all on that? Any other suggestions that you guys can have a look into in terms of this? Using external recruitment for roles where numbers are low for unrepresented. Yeah, yes, how can you get more in the first place, isn't it? Katie's having the challenge through STEM returners. Okay, that's okay. So please do feel free to put anyone else could do anything useful you can share, because I think it's invaluable to be able to hear that from others. If anyone's got any questions that they'd like to pop into the chat, please do that. Caitlin's just dropping the links into the podcast on these topics, which hopefully will take things further, reinforce some of what we've talked about. And if you want to join any of our future webinars, we've got one in July, then we're taking a break for August, and then we're back in September. So in July, we're talking about organisational development, which is seems to be something that people are quite interested in and perhaps don't have loads of questions, and then onboarding in September. And also we'll be running, we're running the waiting list for our management course and our Change Superhero course, if you're interested in any of those. In terms of useful links, these will all come out to you, so you can access any of those, and I will come back in a moment here. Some great questions. Philippa is saying, I wouldn't mention degree at all on roles where it's not required, just relevant experience. What about when we're on a programme, e.g. an apprenticeship graduate programme, how can we continue to promote diversity? As in to get, are you saying, Rachel, how can we get more diverse apprentices or graduates for the future, or to make these people more aware of inclusivity, I guess, would be the question, which I'd probably be, I think during an apprenticeship programme, it'd be useful to help people to understand, just train people on when they're being inclusive, when they're not. Yeah, and actually, if on things like graduate programmes and apprenticeships, that would be quite interesting when you put people into mixed and diverse groups and make sure you manage it as an organisation that that people are continually mixing up. So they become inclusive, because even, you know, you do things where you get an action learning set and you end up remaining in that set for, you know, the whole time, and you almost become a clique. It's really natural that we all sort of form into groups and teams, which is great, but mixing things up, encouraging people to talk to others who are different, almost getting people to seek out difference. I try and consciously do that in anything like that in a programme, you know, and also mixing up different job roles. So, you know, get the accountant and the salesperson to get to know each other and work together. So you're breaking up cliques the whole time and creating matrices of people throughout the organisation. I'd look at something like that in terms of just generally being inclusive. You don't have to target them for being male, female, whatever. It's actually valuing others regardless. And then I guess I would be inclined to get people on those programs and make sure you get a range of them, of a diverse range of people speaking for the program, that it's not always the, you know, the usual suspects who are promoting it. So making sure you have a diverse range of role models who've been on the program, who you get a bit of a video clip from, who perhaps go in and recommend it to others. So just being conscious, because it may well be, you know, let's say there's 2 women on a program of 20, that they might feel a bit outnumbered and be less likely to speak up. And so, you know, making sure that you actually get them to have their voices heard and for them to be inspiring future people to come. Perhaps talk to them about how we could encourage others to go forward for programs as well. So if you have got someone who's come through from a minority, ask them why they chose to come on it and how you think they could help us, you know, to do it. So talk to them about how you could do it. Those are off the top of my head, any ideas? And I'm sure you guys will have others as well. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up, and I will do just as we usually do. If any of you want to know anything else about what we offer, save you having to get into contact directly, you can just pop on here and just indicate whether you're interested in any of those, and we'll just, myself or Katie will get in touch with you. So if you want to know anything about the things that are coming through in the September, feel free to just put that's about the training if you want to know about the software, or if you want to know about Actus 360 and how you could use that to support any of those things, please feel free to just pop that there. Let's check for that viewing. So please feel free to pop anything there. All right, so thank you so much for joining, and we will follow up with you after this. In terms of, we'll ping out the links to all of the things we've dropped in the chat to save you as well, and I will go and dig out that McKinsey report so you've got that too. I'll stay on here for a moment. If anyone wants to have a chat with me about anything, please feel free. But otherwise, thank you for joining today. I hope to see you at a future. Thanks, Joe.